Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/Nerdery and Murdery. That's audibletrial.com/Nerdery and Murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/Nerdery and Murdery. That's betterhelp.com/Nerdery and Murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
The sound of hoofbeats cross the glade. Good folks, lock up your son and daughter. Beware the deadly flashing blade. Unless you want to end up shorter. Blackadder, Blackadder, he rides a pitch black steed. Blackadder, Blackadder, he's very bad indeed.
You know, it's been a while on this, and I apologize. You're an idiot. Welcome to episode 167 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 167. I'm Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows and the ups and the downs, the good and the bad, and the nerd and the murd. So last year, you know, we had a pool installed.
Yes.
And there were still several repairs that needed to be done.
Okay.
They told us we still owed them money. We told them, when you fix it, we'll finish paying you the money.
Yes.
But in looking at it, we didn't owe them money. They owed us money because they charged us for some equipment they never put in. So we were in the positive.
Okay.
But we kept sending emails, and people would show up. They wouldn't fix things. I mean, there's a crack in one of our tiles. They damaged a piece of our roof. They had to do some electrical work in the back where they 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 did basically damaged our lights on our back fence. They were supposed to come on every night at sundown and then turn off about 10 o'clock. Well, that stopped working. They brought an electrician in. He didn't wire it correctly, and one of them burst and caused some burn marks on our wall.
Nice.
Several things that were done, and we'd been trying, and basically we would send an email, we'd get ghosted. We would try to get them to come out, Well, throughout all this, we were still paying them every month to clean our pool without fail, paying early.
Yep.
But they just weren't getting the stuff fixed. And this is South Texas Pools, by the way. I'm gonna go ahead and throw them out there.
Wow.
It's
South Texas Bulls. You want to sponsor us?
No, they won't. They won't. Chelsea and I were out golfing, and one of the owners, the younger of the two owners, because it's a father and son, the son is going to be taking over the business. He comes out and talking about the money we owe, to which my mother-in-law told him, we'd be happy to pay you, but you need to fix what you have damaged. And basically he called her a liar and said we didn't want to pay. Called her a liar twice. And so she threw him off the property. Well, I hear about this, and it's like, okay, it's my turn to step in. And I went and I made a visit. I talked to the father, the owner, and when I first get there, because I called him and told him I was coming, the first thing he says is, well, my son has told me his side of the story, so let's hear yours. Very, very abrasive. So I told him, and his immediate reaction was, no, that's not what happened. And I said, excuse me? I'm telling you the side of the story. Well, were you there? No. Were you? And then he goes on, he goes, well, I'm going to tell you what, my son went to Texas A&M and he just doesn't lie. And I said, that means nothing to me. I said, number one, he did lie. He is lying. And here's what needs to happen. Number one, you owe us money. Here's the invoice. Here's the equipment we don't have. And here's a picture showing that we don't have this. Here's a picture of all the damage. And you're going to fix it. We need to get our money that you owe us. And your son needs to make an apology to my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, that's not going to happen. And which really kind of floored me. And he goes on to say, we've been in business 30 whatever years. I think it's 39 years. And, we don't have complaints like this and blah, blah. We've got a great reputation and blah, blah, blah. I'm not on social media. I go by my reputation. I went, well, I am on social media. And this is going to go on social media. Because y'all are in the wrong. This is a very simple thing. Make a customer happy, because this is actually the second pool that my mother-in-law has had installed from y'all. You should be wanting to make a customer happy, and this is a small thing for him to make an apology. This is how she was made to feel. She was made to feel terrible. And he said, well, he's a 42-year-old man. He's not going to listen to me. And I said, yeah, I'm a 53-year-old man, and when my boss tells me to do something, I do it. So
doesn't matter how old my boss is.
Right. Well, he basically kept throwing it back on us, basically saying we were in the wrong and blah, 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 blah. And I got mad, and I got up and I said, this is obviously not going to be fixed here. You'll be hearing from me. And I went home and I got online. First place I hit was the Better Business Bureau. There were no comments, no reviews on the Better Business Bureau. So mine is the first.
And only.
And then I went to Reddit, and then I went to Facebook, and then I went to Google, and I started posting the whole interaction. Well, he immediately replied on the Better Business Bureau site. And,
I'll bet he did.
And basically said they were in the wrong, it was inappropriate, and repairs will be happening the following week. Nice. So as callous as he was, because he was just an ass in the office. He's obviously worried about his reputation and didn't like the fact that it was being tarnished online. And he found out real quick that the internet can get very powerful very quickly.
Yes. Internet's a
So
powerful thing.
yeah, yeah.
Well, and I would imagine you're probably not the only people who have complaints from these people if they're that way.
I'm sure we're not. And there's
If it
people
were something small like a cracked tile,
right.
I get it, but they called out an electrician, they screwed it up, they burnt your house.
They damaged the
not
roof.
bad. Yeah, damaged the roof. How the hell did they damage the roof?
So between our house and the side garage, there is a overhang, which basically gives you a little walkway between, so you can walk from that.
Yeah, like a
garage
breezeway.
down. Yeah, like a breezeway. Well, their dirt excavator damaged the soffit.
Okay.
And they were telling us for the longest time, well, we can't get that. They no longer make those soffits. Yet I could find it on Home Depot very quickly. When I went to this dude's office, the soffit was sitting there in his office that was purchased from Home Depot. It just needs to be painted and whatnot. But and he tried telling me, he goes, well, companies out there, they wouldn't have even taken your job if they couldn't get the equipment through there. And I said, that's not my problem. You accepted this job after you came out and surveyed. That's your problem, not mine. So yeah, so we're hopefully going to get all that fixed, but yeah, nice. I'm like a dog with a bone when it comes to stuff like that. Don't fuck with me.
Right on.
So that was my fun thing this week. So
nice.
Awesome. Well, I got nothing else. If you want to take over on the nerdery side of the house.
I do. Today we're going to talk about Blackadder.
Cool.
It's a series of yes, Blackadder's awesome. It is a series of 4 period British sitcoms plus several one-off installments, which originally aired on BBC One from 1983 to 1989. All television episodes starred Rowan Atkinson as the anti-hero Edmund Blackadder and Tony Robinson as Blackadder's dog body, Buldrick. Each series was set in a different historical period, with 2 protagonists accompanied by different characters, though several reappear in one series or another, e.g. Melchett, played by Stephen Fry, Lord Percy, and Captain Darling, played by Tim McHenry, and George, played by Hugh Laurie.
So I wanted you to stop there because I wanted to specifically talk about Hugh Laurie for a second. For those of you out there who have never seen Blackadder, but you've seen House, go see Blackadder.
It's the same guy.
Yes, because it's the exact same guy. And in House, he's this very stoic, very codgy doctor with a great American accent. Not his English accent, but to see the difference between him in House and to see him in Blackadder is just hysterical.
Mr. Sticky Black Thicky Adder Thicky. Is that all you got? Yes. Yeah. Oh my God! And George and yeah. It's the best. The first series, The Blackadder, was written by Richard Curtis and Rowan Atkinson, while subsequent series were written by Curtis and Ben Elton. The shows were produced by John Lloyd in 2000. The 4th series, Blackadder Goes Forth, ranked 16 in the 100 greatest British television programs. I'm sorry, they made a movie that was produced in 2000.
Yeah. This is another one because I'm going to throw it in there. Rowan Atkinson. More people are probably very familiar with Mr. Bean because he had 1 or 2 movies.
Yeah. Plus the Mr. Bean series ran forever.
Yeah.
And a cartoon series.
That's another one. Those of you familiar with Mr. Bean, see Blackadder and see the very difference between the characters.
Well, okay. I would say that the first series of Blackadder would be a little closer to Mr. Bean.
Yes.
But the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th series where he's just this huckster who makes things happen. Oh my God. Oh God, there's one scene in Blackadder the 2nd where he's like, yes, Percy, in the Renaissance, most people like to have a wonderful conversation with with thoughts and ideas to advance humankind. I personally would rather spend it with a dickhead like you.
Well, and these are period pieces too, because the first Blackadder is set
It's in the Dark Ages.
in the Dark Ages. The
Yeah.
second one is set
It's Elizabethan.
Elizabethan. The third one is Renaissance.
No, it's Reformation, Restoration.
Okay,
1700s
gotcha. And then the fourth one is World War One.
is World War One. Yeah, and also they did a one-off episode that took place during the English Civil War with the Roundheads, which was just a single episode. They did a Christmas episode, which was Dickensian, which was really, really funny, where Blackadder's a really nice guy, and the ghosts come to visit him and turn him mean. It's really funny. And then they made the movie Blackadder Back and Forth, where he goes all through history. He basically pretends to invent a time machine to get his friends to invest money in it so he can steal their money. But it turns out when he tells Baldric that he needs to build a time machine, Baldric actually builds a time machine. He goes back in time and screws up England, and he has to reel it back and do some other stuff. And ends up becoming king. Rowan Atkinson said that Blackadder is the thing he found the least stressful to do. But by that, he means from the second onward. Because the first one he was kind of stressed out about because they spent a lot of money on the first series because they filmed at castles. It was all really period and great. After that, the BBC was like, yeah, it's funny, people like it, but we want to kind of retool it and make it a little less expensive to make. So they used all sets after that, and it was actually funnier. So each series compromises 6 half-hour episodes and is set in a different period of British history, as Geoffrey said. The first series, made in 1983, was called The Blackadder and was set in the fictional reign of Richard IV. The second, which is right after Richard III. The second series, Blackadder 2, was set during the reign of Elizabeth I. Blackadder III was set during the late 18th and early 19th centuries in the reign of George III, and Blackadder Goes Forth was set in the 1917 in the trenches of the Great War. Blackadder follows the misfortunes of Edmund Blackadder, again played by Rowan Atkinson. It's implied in each series that the Blackadder character is a descendant of the previous one. The in-theme lyrics of the Series 2 episode Head specify that he is the great-great-grandson of the previous incarnation, although it is never specified how or when any of the Blackadders, who are usually bachelors, manage to father children. In Series 1, Edmund Blackadder is not particularly bright, as is much of the intellectual inferior of the servant, Baldric. However, in the subsequent series, the positions are reversed. Blackadder is very clever, shrewd, scheming, and manipulative, while Baldric is extremely dim. Yeah, because Baldric's basically doing all the planning in the first one. And Percy's always an idiot. Captain Darling, because Tim McHenry played Percy in the first, second series, and he played him in he played Percy, and he wasn't in the third series, but in the fourth series, he came back as a different character called Captain Darling. I think because he was making Eric the Viking. Because he was pretty big in that. He was pretty, in that production.
Captain Darling. Blackadder always just refers to him as Darling.
Darling. Yes, darling. Oh my God. The show is very witty. Each incarnation of Blackadder and Baldric is also saddled with tolerating the presence of a dim-witted aristocrat. In the first two series, it's Lord Percy Percy, played by Tim McHenry. Hugh Laurie plays that role in the third and fourth series as Prince George, Prince Regent, and Lieutenant George, respectively. Stephen Fry's Lord Melcher fits a similar role in the second and fourth series. He also played Nelson in the third series. Rowan Atkinson and Richard Curtis developed the idea for the sitcom while working on Not the 9 O'Clock News. Eager to avoid comparisons to the critically acclaimed Fawlty Towers, they proposed the idea as a historical sitcom. An unaired pilot episode was made in 1982, and a 6-episode series was commissioned. The budget for the series was very considerable, with much location shooting, particularly in Alnwick Castle in Northumberland and surrounding countryside. In February of '83, the series also used large casts of extras, horses, and expensive medieval style costumes. Atkinson has said about the making of the first series. The first series was odd. It was very extravagant. It cost £1 million for 6 programs, which was a lot of money to spend. It looks great, but it wasn't as consistently funny as we would have liked. So again, due to the high cost of the first series, the then controller of programming at BBC One, Michael Grade, curses Michael Grade, was reluctant to sign off on a second series without major improvements to the show and drastic cost cutting. So leaving a gap of 3 years between the two series, Atkinson did not wish to continue writing for the second series. Because again, he wanted it to be easier. He wanted to do this because at the time he was making Blackadder, he was already working on that Mr. Bean character. He'd actually kind of thrown him out in some live. He's doing a bunch of live shows and live touring. One was recorded and broadcasted on the BBC and on HBO. You can get out there and find it. It's Rowan Atkinson, One Night with Rowan Atkinson. And it's the first time you really get to see that Bean character. He does a lot of other characters too, which are very, very funny. But that Bean character kind of took off, and that's when he started working on it. But he met comedian Ben Elton, and he introduced him to Richard Curtis, who was his writing partner, and they figured out what was wrong with the first series. And again, they shot it in the studio, but they wanted to make Blackadder cunning, and this led to familiar setups that was maintained in the following series. So it is only in Back and Forth Millennium Special was the shooting once again on location, because this was a production with a budget estimated at £3 million, was a joint venture between Tiger Aspect, Sky Television, and New Millennium Experience Company, and the BBC, rather than just the BBC by itself. So that Back and Forth movie was a little bit bigger. The Christmas episode and the Roundhead episode, or the English Civil War episode, also on sets. So there was no outage, but that or exterior shots. That Back and Forth movie, though, they go to Rome and Britain. He made Shakespeare. He beats Shakespeare up. He gives a cunning plan to Nelson, or not Nelson. Oh my God, he beat Napoleon. Oh, historical. I can't think of the dude's name. He's very famous.
Dadgummit.
Yeah, that general. He gives him that.
Yes.
Also played by Stephen Fry again. He was
Cornwall?
No, not Cornwall.
Cornwall?
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm going to think of this one. Our English fans are screaming at me right now. But yeah, so he gives him a cunning plan to defeat Napoleon. No, or not. I keep wanting to say Nelson. It's not Nelson. It's the other guy.
Wellington.
Duke of Wellington. Yeah. He gives Wellington the cunning plan. It was Stephen Fry played Wellington in the third episode, or the third series, in one episode. And just all kinds of crazy stuff. But he goes back and forth. He goes through time and he messes it up. So he has to go back in time and fix everything. It's brilliant. It's funny. It's witty. It's historical, at least as much as they could be. The first one is very historical. The rest of them, they were more concerned about the comedy than the historical aspects. But the costuming is brilliant throughout. And Blackadder goes forth. The fourth series ends with them going on a raid in a no man's land, all of them together. It's actually it has a very sad ending, which I've included. But it's beautiful. It's just wonderful. The whole setup, everything about it. It's funny. It's sad. It's witty. It's probably Rowan Atkinson at his best, I think. I mean, I like Mr. Bean. I've even got a little Mr. Bean figure out here somewhere. I like my kids love the cartoon. I love it when he paints his house by blowing up paint cans and just untaping everything. It's just, I think it was brilliant. But yeah, this is This is where I discovered Rowan Atkinson. I just think he's great. And this is considered a classic series because of it. They don't, as they kick the idea around about doing some more, but the problem is, like with the first series, to be right.
Hmm.
They could get away with it with a one-off episode for the Roundheads, in the English Civil War. It was a one-off episode for the Children in Need special. I get it. It was not as strong as it was funny, but it was not as strong as, say, Blackadder the Third and Blackadder Goes Forth, because that's when it took place in that time period between the two. But it was not as strong. But it was one episode.
Right.
One and done. They kind of tied it up at the end. And I think that's why they don't want to do anymore. They were like, oh, we'll do one for the Millennium because we got some good ideas, and they were brilliant, just really, really funny. Miranda Richardson was part of it. Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry, Tim McHenry, Lord Flashheart, played by Rick Mayall, the writer of Bad News and The Young Ones, and several other things. Rick Mayall playing Flashheart, who is just this dashing hero of a man who gets the better of Blackadder every time they meet up, even though they're friends. I love the Flashheart stuff, and Rick Mayall is great because he's just this swashbuckling dude. He does it. That's pretty funny coming from Vivian from The Young Ones, but he was a brilliant writer. Oh my God. Just funny all over. Tom Baker was in an episode of Blackadder the Second.
Yep.
I mean, everybody wanted to do it because it was so funny and so much fun, and you got to wear costumes and but it also made me afraid of the Bishop of Barton Wells. So I'm afraid of the Bishop of Barton Wells to this day. But yeah, that's about it for Blackadder, other than get out and see it. In the YouTube page, I've listed like a documentary piece on it, as well as snippets from different series. I think I even have a full episode of Blackadder the Second. But you can kind of see how it plays out. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a great show. Definitely wherever you can find episodes of those. It's so funny. Blackadder.
Yeah, I think it's fairly available right now too.
My favorites would be Blackadder the Third and Blackadder Goes Forth. The Blackadder Goes Forth is by far my favorite.
Blackadder Goes Forth is pretty damn superior.
But it shocked me as I was looking some things up as you were talking. I could have sworn there were more episodes than just 6 per season. It sure felt like it.
Yeah, it did.
But anyway, so good short watch. You can watch an entire series in a day.
They're only a half hour.
Yeah, they're only half hours. So get out and watch them. They're very, very funny. See Rowan Atkinson as probably his very best. I mean, like I said, I think more people probably know him as Mr. Bean. This is him at his best.
Oh yeah.
Give that a shot. Awesome. Appreciate that.
Sure thing. Thanks for letting me sing the song.
Oh, you bet. With that, I'll take over on the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
For today, I got my information off Medium, the Phoenix New Times, and the Huff Post, and this is the story of Michael Miller.
Michael Miller.
So, in the early hours of the morning on May 30th, 2009, in Glendale, Arizona, a panicked Michael Miller dialed 911 to confess to stabbing his wife and children. At first glance, the Miller family didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. They were your typical nuclear family, a husband, wife, 2 kids, a 10-year-old daughter, and 4-year-old son. Michael and his wife, Adriana, had been together for 11 years. They met in April 1998 when they were both working the closing shift at a Wendy's. Michael got the courage to ask her out. They'd been together ever since. They eventually married in August of 1999. Adriana was described as a loving wife who would have done anything for her family. Michael, though he had a history of struggling with mental health issues such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, was known to friends and family as a devoted husband and father. So it came as a surprise to everyone when Michael turned himself into the police, confessing that he had just stabbed his wife and kids. Around 9:30 p.m., Michael had gotten off work. He was 29 years old at the time, and he worked as a delivery pizza driver for Papa John's. He had trouble sleeping, likely because of the medication he was taking due to his diagnosis of schizophrenia. His doctor had recently increased his dosage, and because of that, his doctor also prescribed him a sleeping pill to help him with his sleep schedule. It was not uncommon for Michael to only sleep a couple of hours a night.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good for your mental health either.
No, not at all. He'd be able to fall asleep, but then he'd wake up a few hours ready and alert. And and I understand this because I don't sleep well.
Mhm.
When I do sleep, I sleep well, but I don't sleep long. Let me rephrase that. Sometimes I'll have some interrupted sleep, but once I'm awake, I'm awake. I got to get up.
Yeah.
This
Same.
morning, 3:00, bam, I was.
Oh man, I'm
And
sorry.
so I was having my coffee. That's a normal for me. 3:30. I just wake up.
When I got up at 6:30 this morning, I'm like, should I sleep in a little bit? Like, nope, I'm awake. I want to go make some coffee.
I set my alarm for 5:30 Monday through Friday for work, but I generally wake up at 3.
Wow.
I'll get up, I'll shower, I'll have my coffee, and just I watch Facebook videos or I play games on my phone until I start work. So I understand this. Once I'm awake, I'm awake.
Yeah.
It's
Once you're up, you're up. I get it.
very, very rare that I can go back to sleep. So the night in question, when Michael returned home just before 10 p.m., he was wide awake. His children were getting ready for bed, so Michael and Adriana tucked them in. Michael did recall putting his son to bed and saying nightly prayers with him. Now, this wasn't the normal routine for the family, but Michael had said that those last couple of weeks he had been focusing on his personal faith and had started praying more regularly. He said that night they prayed about what they were thankful for and that they would be safe. And after the kids were in bed, he ate some food, took some medication, including the sleeping pill, and then went to hang out with his wife in their bedroom. She was watching House Hunters on TV, and they watched TV for a while, and still Michael wasn't tired, so they decided to go smoke some weed. It helped a little, and Michael stated that he had started to drift off, but just like he experienced in the past, he woke up after a few hours, and his wife was sleeping soundly next to him. He didn't want to wake her, so we went out to the living room and passed the time by surfing the internet. That night, he said on LimeWire, remember LimeWire?
Yep.
And downloaded an Eminem song featuring Jay-Z, Renegade, which he then transferred to his MP3 player. So I had told you earlier in the week, listen to the song Kim by Eminem.
Yep. Oh, wow. Yeah, that song's messed up.
That song is very messed up. Those of you listening right now, stop, go listen to the song Kim from Eminem, and then come back to this story.
Okay, they should be back.
Yeah. It was then that Michael said his wife came into the kitchen and started berating him for being awake. They got into an argument and began shouting at each other. Neighbors said that they could hear yelling, and soon that yelling turned into screaming. Michael reached for a knife in a nearby holder and stabbed his wife, all the while she was pleading with her husband to stop. And with all the commotion, it of course woke the kids, and so he then stabbed them too.
Oh my God.
He then turned around and called 911 and turned himself in. When police arrived at the scene, it was just like Michael had described. His wife and daughter were on the kitchen floor, and they were both dead. The son, however, was still breathing, though seriously injured. He was rushed off to a hospital, and he did thankfully survive. The police also found the weapon, the kitchen knife, with Michael's fingerprints all over it. There were footprints all around the house, with some leading to the bedroom, and police found Michael just standing there, only in his underwear. Michael was immediately taken into custody, where police could begin their investigation and figure out exactly what happened and why. Detective McMillan was assigned the case, and when he entered, he observed that Michael didn't seem to be aggressive or exhibiting threatening behavior, so he decided to uncuff him. And the detective started off by trying to learn about Michael's life. Michael shared how he and Adriana met. But it was strange because Michael kept referring to his wife in the present tense. They went on to talk about what it was like starting a family, and Michael joked that Adriana had gained a lot of weight, but nothing out of the ordinary happened that he could remember. He told the detective he had also taken sleeping pills that night, as well as his schizophrenia medication. And that's when the detective learned about Michael's history of mental health. He pressed Michael about his medication, and Michael said he'd been a patient in a county-funded psychiatric unit since 2004, and before that, he had been seeing a different doctor regarding his mental health in 2003. It was in November of 2003 that Michael was first diagnosed with schizophrenia and began seeing a doctor after getting severely paranoid. He thought he was being followed by cars and strangers on the street, and he was convinced that he was being watched. He also said he had the ability to see spiritual battles being fought on Earth.
Oh, no.
So one night, November of 2003, Michael told his wife how he'd been feeling, and she urged him to seek help. He initially decided to call in sick from work and get some rest at home. That night, Michael said he saw a sand crab turn into a leaf, and that's when he knew things were bad and he had to go to the hospital. He did also open up about his struggles with alcohol abuse. And he even attempted suicide a year prior, resulting in yet another hospitalization. Since then, Michael said he'd been taking medication, staying sober, and dealing with his sleeping habits. The detective asked him why he did what he did and if his wife had been aggressive during their argument. But in his own words, he said he knew what he did was wrong, but at the moment, he knew he wanted his family to die. Now, though, he said he was filled with fear and regret with no residual feeling of ill will. He said he hoped that they were alive and well and that he loves them. The detective didn't sugarcoat it at that point. He told Michael that his wife and daughter were dead and the son was in the hospital being treated for severe injuries, and those injuries were because of him. Michael simply thought the detective was lying. Detective McMillan asked if Michael did anything else on the computer besides download music, and Michael admitted he was listening to music when he was stabbing his family. He was listening to the track Kim by Eminem. Think of that song real quick and think of that song playing while he's killing his family. I mean, I had to go and listen to this song when I was researching this story. I do recommend listening to it at least once just for putting some framework around this story. But it's the lyrics to the song are horrifyingly fitting given to what he was doing at this time. This is when he said something inside him snapped and he had no control and felt that his wife had become a demon. The detective noticed that Michael's hand had a bandage on it, and he learned that Michael had been stabbed in the struggle with his wife before she died. Apparently, when Michael threatened her with the knife, she panicked and tried to grab it from him, but Michael pulled it away, injuring himself in the process. Michael then said he went into a blind rage, and he said it felt like out of nowhere his daughter appeared, like God put her there, and he got scared. He said he thought there was a spell on the house and that Satan would keep everyone asleep while he murdered his wife, so he was surprised to see his daughter come into the kitchen. He said he knew he was going to kill his wife, but didn't anticipate hurting the kids. Michael said God spoke to him while he committed his crimes as well. He said God told him to kill them like they killed Christ. Finally, Michael talked about his last victim, his 4-year-old son, and again, he said he was ruthless when he attacked his son because he loved him the most. After he was done with his family, he then walked into the bedroom and went to pray to Jesus and thank him for what he did. He said he prayed for about 6 minutes before calling 911. Michael said Jesus used him to stab his family and kill them in order to bring them back the newness of life. And he kept saying over and over that it was his calling to be a servant of God, and that although he was new to this role, God had something magnificent planned for him. The detective kept his cool and asked Michael what he meant by the newness of life. Michael explained that his family had died because of their trespasses and that by killing them, they were able to meet God and go to heaven. Then Michael asked again, very calmly, if his family was okay.
Like it was happening, but it wasn't really happening.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's here. The antipsychotic medicines that he's on and the sleeping pills that he's on, is there warnings about reactions between these two drugs?
It's not in here. I don't know, and that's a great question. I didn't get specifics on what the meds were. So it's possible. I mean, it was the same doctor that was prescribing both.
Okay.
So you would think they would see the
Yeah,
the
if there's some
reactions,
sort of reactions.
but the pharmacy is also supposed to check for that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
This is tragic.
It is.
Tragic.
It's
And
very tragic.
honestly, I kind of feel for this guy because I think this guy needs to be someplace where he can get help. I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not
Yes.
somebody you throw in prison. This is somebody you try to help. You try
Yes.
to fix.
Agreed.
Because I don't think this is a bad guy at all. This is not a
Agreed.
serial killer.
Agreed. Agreed. So Michael had asked if his family was okay. Detective McMillan again said his son is alive but in critical condition, but his wife and daughter are dead. And that was when it seemed like the situation was finally sinking in, because Michael then asked how long he's going to go to prison for.
Mhm.
The detective said he didn't know, but he explained what would happen next. They said that they were going to search his place and gave Michael a copy of the signed search warrant. And Michael, seeing cognizant of all these things, he read the search warrant, comprehended what it all meant, and then he even signed it.
Mhm.
In December of 2009, Michael Miller was found guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempt to commit murder in the first degree.
Hmm.
He received a life sentence for each count of murder with no possibility of parole and an additional 99 years for the attempted murder of his son. He did not get the death penalty, but he's going to spend the rest of his natural life in prison. During court proceedings, family members came to Michael's defense, saying that he was a kind man who loved his family. Michael's brother Mitchell pleaded with the courts to take into account Michael's mental health history. He argued that his brother had struggled with anxiety and depression for years, including his diagnosis of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and that the judge should reevaluate Michael's sentencing, but the courts have refused. There's been over 15 years since this happened. There's been very little activity on this case, so as far as I know, he's still in prison.
Hmm.
At this point, Michael's son is now an adult, and he has been shielded from the media by his family, so it's unknown what he's doing in his life now or how it's affected him. As this case becomes more open to the public, there have been arguments made that Michael was faking it, while others disagree, and he said he was displaying clear signs of suffering during a manic episode, and I agree with that.
Okay. It speaks to that because the guy had just murdered 2 people, and the detective comes in and unlocks his cuffs and is just talking to him.
Right.
Not afraid of nothing, because it's like, oh, this guy snapped. This guy needs some help. I mean, it sounds like the detective is thinking exactly the same way you and I are.
Yeah. And, I mean, whether Michael's symptoms are real or not, it's clear that he's suffering from something, because it does take a disturbed person, an extremely disturbed person, to do that to their own family.
Mm-hmm.
One of the saddest parts about this case is that, based on research, it doesn't seem like that it was a secret that Michael had been experiencing mental health problems. But it doesn't look like he was getting properly treated. Was it maybe that a minor dosage adjustment in his medication could have been one of the factors in that? Could have been a reaction between the 2 medications, like we said. Michael even said that a few days prior, his doctor had changed his prescription. There's definitely many other factors that can play in determining
like a couple of days for that stuff to build up in your system.
Right. There's no real way of knowing for sure if mental health illness issues were the direct causes of actions or not, or the pills. Okay. So I'm kind of getting on my soapbox here for a minute, and I apologize that I'm going to get on my soapbox, and I'm going to get real personal here for a minute. And I apologize to our users, but I think you need to hear this, because we've talked about mental health issues before on this show. We've got BetterHelp as one of our sponsors. I myself have been treated for mental health issues, and I'm very passionate about having very good mental health. Very passionate. Let me tell you this: mental health is no joke. Period.
No, it's not.
With everything that's going on in our lives, both work and personal, world events, and many other factors, it's very easy to ignore the signs that you need help, and easy to think that it will just resolve on its own. I dealt with depression. Depression so severe that the only place I felt safe was in bed. I was sleeping 9 to 12 hours a day when I could, and my doctor told me that's not healthy. It's really not. Um, Outside of the show, I hardly talked, and even here on the show, I struggled. I went through the motions because I had to, and just for our listeners, it's why I had to leave the show for a few months. I rarely laughed. I hardly wanted to be around people. I went out with Zig and some other friends one night to a restaurant. We all sat outside, and everybody around me was talking, but me. And that's not me. I get right into the conversation, and I talk in the conversation. I always have things to interject, and I just kind of sat there because I was uncomfortable. I feared driving anywhere. I feared going to work. I told Michael Shanks over at 2 Geeks and a Microphone that listening to their show or ours on my daily commute was all that got me through the drive. It was like, it might sound silly, but it was like having friends sitting there with me as I drove to keep my mind off of all the other terrible things I was imagining. I wasn't enjoying anything in my life. I was not suicidal, but I really often thought it would be easier if I was just dead. I think they call it suicidal ideation. I didn't know what to do at the time and I couldn't relate what was going on inside my head. It's hard to describe what depression and anxiety can do to you to somebody that doesn't experience it. It's very hard to define how that is. But anyway,
It's
I got
hard
help.
to define it for people who do experience it.
It's extremely hard. You can't. You just can't.
It's hard to put it into words.
Yes. The one thing I looked forward to every day was getting into bed. That was it. I went through the motions, and I mean, for me, I was watching my clock. As soon as I saw it hit 7 o'clock at night, I felt that was long enough that I had presented myself enough as normal that I could go to bed. But I mean, it was 7, period. You wouldn't see me in bed too much after that. And I did that because I wanted to be in bed as long as I possibly could. On the weekends, it was bad. It was bad. But I did get help. For a while, I got on meds, which kind of zombified me. I didn't really like those. I did get therapy. And then I ended up changing my whole life around. It wasn't easy, it wasn't quick, and it was work. But I came out on the other side. I'm happier now than I have been in a long time. I'm actually enjoying life again and enjoying people again. And I didn't say this for anyone to feel sorry for me or take pity on me. I don't want you to do that. I say this because there are people out there possibly right now listening that need to hear this. You're not alone, and it can get better. Get help. Talk to someone. Talk to anyone who will listen. If you want to, reach out to me. My email address is on our website. If you email me direct and you need to talk to somebody, I'll send you my phone number. I'll talk to you because I know what it's like to be there. I know what it's like to hurt inside. There are resources that are out there. If you need help finding those resources, let me know. Again, email me direct. I promise I will understand or at least empathize, and I'll help. I can't treat you, but I can help and I'll listen if that's all you need. It's just that one person who can relate. Take the step. Get right with your mental health, because above everything, you are worth it and you are loved. I'm sorry I'm cracking up a little bit. This is very personal to me, but this was a case of very severe mental issues, and I just want our listeners to never, ever, ever feel like they're alone out there.
You don't want to get to the point where this guy was.
No, you don't want to. Exactly. You don't want to get to that point. Take care of yourself. Do what you need to do. And again, if you need someone to talk to, reach out to me on our website. It's Geoffrey at nerderyandmurdery.com. I'll listen. I'll listen. So I'm sorry I got very emotional on that. And I'm sorry I took such a deep dive into my personal, but I really kind of felt it was important. But
What are you talking about? That was gold, sir. That was gold. I love you, man.
I appreciate that. But yeah, that's the story, the sad story of Michael Miller.
Thank you for that, and thank you for that heartfelt explanation as well.
You bet. I mean, if just one person out there hears that and gets help, then I think I did my job today.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was absolutely worth it. So yeah, let me clear my throat there. That takes us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find more information about us on nerderymurdery.com. You can find our email addresses, and that's our link to everything. You'll find links to what we talk about in this episode, plus pictures from the topics we talk about. Plus, you can find the link to our YouTube page, which we so often zig updates.
Yeah, there are the snippets and a full episode on our YouTube page for some of this.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Appreciate all the work you do on that. You can also find the link to our merchandise page, where if you wish to show off your Nerdery and Murdery fandom, please do consider doing that along with our patrons. You can find the link to our Patreon site, but our merchandise, the sales from our merchandise and the donations from our patrons help keep the show going, help keep us on the air. There are costs that are associated with uploading with our website and everything like that. So do please consider that. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Please, thank you.
Please and thank you. And last but not least, please do not forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us and helps others find our content that may be looking for the topics we discuss. So with that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
and I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
Cue the music.